All right, it's the All Access Entertainment Podcast. Your host, Joseph Bruen, here with a man that you may have seen on the news, you may have seen in the WWE, or, of course, representing Cycle Drag. Ladies and gentlemen, Jack Korpela here with us today. Jack, thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Joe. Always a pleasure to get on here with you. I'm sorry my voice is a little bit down because I just got back from 6 days of Daytona Biketoberfest, covering it on my outlet, Cycle Drag. So I lost my voice a little bit. It was kind of like being in a packed, sold-out WWE arena for 5 days straight. So it was awesome, but did a whole lot of yelling. So I apologize.
No worries at all. So, I mean, while we're talking about it now, let's dive right into that Cycle Drag. How did that come about for you? Is it something that you've kind of always been interested in, and that's why you got involved? And tell us all about the process and what you do.
Well, sure. Thanks a lot. I think I'm so blessed that we live in this age, as evidenced by what you're doing right now, where everybody has an opportunity to create digital content. Because when I came out of school in 2005, out of the University of Florida, I'm old enough that I was sending out VHSs, right? Maybe I should have had DVDs at that point, but yeah, kids, VHSs, because there were 50 places in the country you had a chance to work, all these starter markets and small markets in news, or maybe, you put a wish in a well and get an entertainment job that's 1 in a million. We'll talk about that in a second. But anywho, fast forward to 2025, and now everybody's got an opportunity. So I'm all in. I had Cycle Drag as a .com back in '05, and it was all about drag bike racing. And I just kind of hung with it. It was a labor of love. It was a couple pennies here and there. It was beer money here and there. And then when the digital age really got rocking and rolling, I went all in on Facebook and YouTube. So what's crazy is now it's my full-time job. My last full-time job went away during COVID. I was working for a studio covering motorsports out in California, and unfortunately everything got shut down. And I said, well, why don't I just go out on my own and see if I can do it. So I got to say, WWE had a huge influence on what I'm doing, and talking to some of the gurus at YouTube that I talk to, everybody, whether or not they respect the WWE product, they all respect wrestling, WWE, the storytelling ability, the production, and it's really the same thing. So I like to pride myself as WWE on two wheels.
So these events, where do they take place? How often do you travel? You're on the road a lot with these guys, and where do you travel for these special events?
I'm like an indie wrestler, Joe, making towns. That's kind of neat that I have the freedom to select a lot of these events, but then this kind of goes into my news judgment background. I tell the story when I got one of my first news jobs. The executive producer grabbed me and he was training me, and he said, "Hey, look, we can teach you just about everything, but we can't teach you news judgment. That's something you're going to have to know. Like, hey, do we go cover this story down the street that nobody's talking about, or do we go cover this major story that?" So I still, at this stage in my career, you swing and miss, but you also kind of have your finger on the pulse of what's hot. And a big motorcycle rallies are easy. So I go to Sturgis, I go to Daytona Bike Week, I go to Daytona Biketoberfest. Everything in between, it gets a little complicated. What's the big event? What do people want to see? So I mix in a lot of drag races. I mix in a lot of different motorcycle auctions and motorcycle culture happenings. But yeah, I've just been hitting it as hard as I can. Those guys inspired me. I remember sitting with Zack Ryder a long time ago at WWE. And I just remember him telling these stories, like yesterday I was in Australia, and then the next day I'm wrestling in LA, and then the next day I'm in Providence. And it just kind of inspired me. And I'm like, well, you know what? Maybe it's time for me to grind like that. So I don't run a schedule quite like that, but I've done some crazy traveling over the last 5 years. And to answer your question, I've been gone pretty much every weekend, I would say, since really the season started, which was Daytona Bike Week in February.
Wow. And you've had some unique opportunities from a non-wrestling capacity to still have the opportunity to interview Stone Cold Steve Austin, WWE Hall of Famer. Now, most people wouldn't expect him, to be seen outside of the wrestling world, of course, but here he is. He's seems to be heavily involved as well. Why don't we talk about that?
No doubt, Joe. And this actually brings me to a larger story that I want to pat you on the back for doing this, because I know this is something you've been talking about for a while. So the theme is just like Nike says, just do it. So I was so happy to see Stone Cold this year at Best in the Desert, and it was an amazing experience. And what some if you've ever been in this position with these larger than life superstars, even me, sometimes it can be a little bit intimidating. Maybe they've got their mind elsewhere, they might not want to be bothered. But no, 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 something happened this year where I said, I will always be aggressive, respectful, but I will go for it. I will never, ever, ever again in my life wait around and say I have time. The reason I won't is because I can tell you this, Joe, and this is great that we're having this conversation because you and I haven't even talked about this. I am pretty certain this year we would have had a Hulk Hogan interview on my channel, because I always thought nobody ever talked to Hulk about his motorsports background and the motorcycles that he loved. And how many times have we seen pictures of him from back in the day on Harleys, whether it was in, back in the WCW era or way back when. And I know from talking to people down here, he loved motorsports. So I would go to his bar every Monday, and Jimmy Hart was there and his son was there and everybody was there. And I just said, you know what? I don't want to be, I don't want to be that fanboy right now. I got time. And I am so regretful of that, because I know too that the fact that I was good friends with Mean Gene Okerlund, I'm sure he would have given me 20 minutes to sit down and talk about bikes. So to answer your question, yeah, I saw Stone Cold Steve Austin this year at Best in the Desert. And without hesitation, I said, even if he hits me with the Stone Cold Stunner, I am not walking out of here saying I choked, I got scared. And he was a total gentleman, professional. Every time I've ever had interactions with him, what a great guy.
That's awesome. And like you said, you got to jump on any opportunity that comes about because you just never know.
You just never know, man. That was the Hulk thing. Man, every wrestler death is sad, but that one, Hulk was my guy. I guess it all depends on what generation you come from. That a lot of people, they grew up in the Attitude Era. A lot of people are Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart fans. Older people, Ric Flair fans. For me, it was Hogan, 100%. He made me fall in love with the business. All those old promos with him and Mean Gene. I tell the story that my first event that I can really remember enjoying was WrestleMania 5, Hulkster and the Macho Man. And I got to admit, I would go down to his bar on a Monday night. And here's what's so cool, Joe. And I wish I could have got you down here, because again, I think thought we would have had years to do this. When I'd go to Hogan's bar, I've had some interactions with superstars where maybe they're on when they're in Madison Square Garden, sold out crowd. But then you see them at like a fan fest or something and they don't want to be bothered. Let me tell you something about the Hulkster. At his bar with a crowd of 50, you would have thought it was sold out Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
It didn't matter if it's 3 people or 30,000 or 300,000. He was just charismatic, hilarious, cracking everybody up, buying the whole bar drinks, coming with his one-liners. I'm really thankful that I got to experience that. And I'm telling you, it changed my life. That I just imagined Hulk would be around for the next 20, 30 years. I couldn't imagine a world without Hulk in 2025.
So places on the road, as far as traveling, places to eat. You're traveling, whether it be in the wrestling business or with cycle drag. Are there certain places in certain cities where you're like, oh man, you know what? I got to make sure to hit this place. You just get pumped up about the little things.
Let me think about that. Well, Joe, right now I'm trying to be lean and mean like you. So I've been working. The road is what gets me, because my diet tends to be good at home. And then I go on the road and oh my God, game on. You're passing that fast food restaurant at 11 p.m. and you're starving. So I've been trying to be good. But let me think. That's a great question. I mean, if I'm out west, I usually have to indulge in In-N-Out. I don't know if you've ever been out there and experienced it,
I've
but
only been to Cali once, and I've seen it. I've never been there, but I hear good things.
it's just fantastic. I'm trying to think of what other wonderful high end places. Going, just returning from Daytona, some of the street vendors are like gourmet. So it's cool. There's one street vendor from Chicago that they cook these Philly steak sausages and all kind of different stuff. So I try to have that as much as I can. But no, you know what? That is a really Good question of what is my all-time. I don't know that I really have a place like that. I think I just try to be the best that I can. It doesn't always end up like that though
Sure.
when I'm absolutely starving. I think Monster Energy, sugar free, keeps me alive on the road more than anything.
Keeps you yeah, keeps you going, gets you through. So rewinding back a little bit, growing up as a wrestling fan, born and raised in Pittsburgh. Tell us about what it was like growing up, and that area of Pittsburgh has some deep history when it comes to pro wrestling. Kind of talk about that a little bit.
Man, it sure does because I look back now at my life and I wonder if I didn't grow up in that area, would I have had the career path and the fandom that I had? Because the WrestleMania 5 that I had mentioned previously, that was from a WrestleMania party that my dad's not even a huge WWE fan. He respects it. It was just never his cup of tea. But his friend group, they'd get together and they'd have a good old fashioned beer bash. Let's go get WrestleMania 3, 4, 5, 6. They would do it all the time. So I actually was at the WrestleMania 3 party because I can remember. Now you're talking. I was born. I got to be 4 years old. So this was like some of the earliest childhood memories. I wasn't into it yet. I just remember people saying Hulk was crying. Come watch the TV after he beat Andre. Hulk was crying. So I do remember the day of WrestleMania 3.
Wow.
And then it wasn't until 2 years later, my dad took me to the same party. And then that time, and now I'm 6 years old. Now I watched Hogan versus Savage with Miss Elizabeth and fell in love with it. And yeah, Pittsburgh was a great place because they were always running indies that I got to go to. Once I made it to WWE, um, freaking the I'm trying to think of their real name. He was Sterling James Keenan was what he was known at in as Pittsburgh. I knew him as Matt Polinsky, but you guys know him as your NXT slash SmackDown announcer from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So it was really cool to work with him and his family and go to a lot of the indie shows that he's running. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about, Joe, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely, man. That's awesome. How did that all come together? Getting your foot in the WWE. Actually, rewinding a little bit before that, your early days of journalism, first and foremost, getting into that, and then from there transitioning to pro wrestling.
Well, I was a huge fan growing up. As I was telling you, after WrestleMania 5, that was it. I had to have every action figure, every magazine, and then that led me to building a wrestling ring in the backyard with tent poles and yarn and making costumes and having fun. And I must say too that um, the love of WWE got me into amateur wrestling, which changed the path and the trajectory of my life. My best friend in Pittsburgh, I always make fun of him. He didn't like me very much when I moved there. And I knew his dad was the coach of the amateur wrestling team. And I said, hey man, I want to try this. I'm in like sixth grade. I said, where do I get my boots at? And he said, you idiot, because those guys, they didn't really like WWE. They're amateur wrestlers. They're Kurt Angle style.
Right.
So it wasn't until a year later that he was like, okay, come on. And so I learned that, I learned real quick that you weren't going to be able to hit an RKO or a Stone Stunner in that ring. But uh, a lot of the WWE guys legitimately have backgrounds like that. So it was just amazing. And then went to the University of Florida for broadcasting, came out, did what I told you, sent tapes everywhere just for the heck of it. I said, let me send one to WWE. And I remember I had this trick that I like spray painted the FedEx envelope real gaudy and just like all these different tricks to get into like your goal is to not have this thrown in the garbage before somebody sees it. Let somebody at least
Right.
open this, pop it in. Somebody popped it in and like 6 months later they called me up for an audition and I just couldn't believe it. I about fell out of my chair. And what really helped me, Joe, I don't know if I ever told you this, what really helped me at the time, I was working motorsports and we are going to car shows. Small world, how all these WWE guys love motorsports. And did a little bit with Bill Goldberg in Texas. And I just asked him, I said, Bill, could we do something where I accidentally insult you? And I think I said, Bill, they say everything's bigger in Texas, but you look a little bit smaller than I thought. Okay, so where was I at? Oh, Goldberg. I'm at a car show in Texas. Goldberg's big motorhead, He's in there enjoying cars and everything. And you can actually find this on Cycle Track YouTube if you go back far enough. It's like one of my earliest clips. And I just asked Bill, I said, "Hey, Bill, could we please do a little skit at the end?" I asked him about cars. I asked him about the Atlanta Falcons. And then at the end, I say, "Well, Bill, everything's bigger in Texas, but you look a little smaller than I thought." I thought he was gonna like, grab my shirt and look at me. He he hit me with the most beautiful, just I, I don't know whatever it was. It was just a solid right to the neck that just knocked me off my chair and knocked me back. But he was such an amazing pro. I didn't feel like I felt like a hammer hit my chest, but he caught my head. I mean, he knew exactly what he's doing. I had no idea that I was signing up for some work. I thought
Right.
we were just going to grab a shirt, but he did such an amazing job, and it came out well. And after my WWE audition, I sent that as a supplement, and I think that might have helped me. I think everything, all the stars had to align for me. It was no slam dunk after I went up there for an audition. The whole thing took like a year, and it's just that's what people ask me. How do I get into this? How do I get into this? How do I get into this? And I say, be willing to do everything, because I was so lucky that all the stars aligned, that they had an opening at this particular time. Somebody decides to take a chance on me. I'll put it to you this way, Joe. I couldn't get back in now, I'm sure. So that's how hard it is. And I've been there, done that for 5 years. So when people would ask me that question, which I would get a lot at WWE, they say, "Hey, how do I become the next big wrestling announcer?" And I'm like, well, there's what, 8, 9, 10 jobs in the world right now, good jobs. So I was like, shoot for the stars, but be willing to do anything. I think the fact that I had a little diverse background with motorsports and the Bill Goldberg ESPN thing, helped me out.
And while you were with the World Wrestling Entertainment, you said you were friendly with me and Gene Okerlund. Any personal stories, personal memories of Gene?
Oh man, I love it. I think I told this story at your convention. Can I repeat it?
Yeah,
Is it okay to
absolutely.
repeat?
Yeah.
Okay. Want to make sure that we got a different audience over here. But no, me and Gene, I miss him greatly. What a guy. I get to WWE in the fall of 2006, and I'm afraid of my own shadow, and rightfully so. I'm a young 24-year-old punk just trying to keep my job and not offend anybody. And then Mean Gene's coming in, and I'm like, oh my gosh, man, this is somebody I've looked up to for years. And I'm in the studio shadowing. So I'm just sitting there for 2 days watching Mean Gene come in. He's doing a bunch of WWE 24/7 hits. And they would use him for a bunch of things. They would fly him up for Florida, and he would do a bunch of different media. At the end of the night, something happened to Mean Gene's car service. Like somebody forgot to order it, or the guy canceled. I don't know how this happened. And I was like, well, Mean Gene, I'll give you a ride to the hotel. And he's like, all right, let's go. Well, I got a two-seater Ford Ranger, right, that I'd had since college with about a gazillion miles on it. Poor Mean Gene at that time is not, as mobile as he would like to be. So I'm helping him get into my truck. I'm putting his suitcase in the back bed where I'm like, he's probably used to riding in limos. And I'm talking to him, and I'm like, this is so cool. I'm riding Mean Gene. I'm like, he's probably never going to want to see me again when I take him to the Marriott in Stanford. He's probably like, all right, kid, thanks for the ride. I drop him off. He says, "Hey, come on in, have a drink." I'm like, "What?" Okay. Parked it, and I just remember sitting in the Stanford, Connecticut Marriott, having a drink with Mean Gene Okerlund, cracking me up, giving me good advice, and it just was like, it was one of those moments, Joe. I don't know if you've ever had one with all the stuff that you do and all the people you meet, where you're like, is this real? Is this, I'm sitting here with Mean Gene having a drink,
Right.
talking about WWE.
Right. Yeah. Gene is as professional as they come. I mean, he's a true pro, and just so much rich history with Gene. But yeah, down to earth, one of the nicest guys. Had the privilege of working with him. 2015, he was a guest at my fan fest, and just a delight to work with. And he was there, with Howard Finkel. They were close
Ah,
friends. Any
yeah.
memories of Howard Finkel while their your time in WWE?
Another guy that I miss greatly. Guy that I think it's great that he is so famous and so remembered. But I will tell you this, for everything Howard Finkel did for WWE behind the scenes, he should probably be remembered tenfold. Joe, you know the story because I know you were close with him. He came up with the name WrestleMania. How about that? I
Right.
mean, that right there should enshrine you in greatness. He was I know when I got there, Howard had worked a multitude of roles, and if anyone ever had any type of question, like when WWE.com was going big and they were doing a story like top 5 tag team breakups, before they did any research, they would just go ask Howard. And Howard would be like, he would rattle it off like an encyclopedia. He was a great dude. My biggest memory being close to Howard is how much he loved softball. That Stamford, Connecticut was a great softball town. And before you guys think what I thought when I got there, I'm like, softball, what the heck? I'm not a girl. Let me tell you what, there's some gamers, female and male. And beyond that, we would have this what was it, the industrial league. We would play the cops, we would play the firemen. It was competitive.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. And Howard thought it was game 7 at Yankee Stadium. I mean, he would keep score. He was the only softball coach that he had a signature line. It was take a pitch, take a pitch. Because he wanted us, just like baseball, he wanted us to work the pitcher. He wanted us to frustrate the pitcher. He knew we could hit one. So take a pitch. And
So enthusiastic. That's great.
oh, he loved it. I mean, I wish he could have been around for that joke. And then somebody would always bring, whoever made the last out would have to bring the beer. So we'd sit around after the game and have a cold one. And Howard would just crack us up. And I miss him. That was the last time I ever saw him at a WWE softball game. And I know that he loved digital media. Like he was really. Sometimes I still look at his Twitter because it's what X now. Sorry, it was Twitter then. But we live in such a strange era where you leave this legacy behind. And I remember Howard was always, for an older man, he was so in tune with the digital era that he was always looking at the milestones that he would hit, that how many people were following him and sharing. And this was back then. I mean, Howard would love it now. So I still sometimes go back and look at some of his last tweets, and he's just sorely missed, man. I know he spoke very, very highly of you and loved working with you. So he's another unsung hero of WWE.
Oh, without a doubt, one of the greatest of all time on many levels, for sure. Now, your time in WWE, when it came to the Titan Towers or the studios, where they would film different segments, did you do most of your stuff backstage at the events, or were you doing this outside of their TV studios?
I was out of the studio 95% of the time, and that was a great gig. Looking back, I was a young, hungry kid who wanted to go on the road because that's how you get on Raw, that's how you get on SmackDown. Let me tell you this, in retrospect, that studio gig was great. I loved it. It really gave me the ability to get better as an on-air talent, work with a wide variety of people, and you didn't have the insane pressure of live television, which was good to get to eventually. But it was laid back. Like maybe Tuesday from 12 to 4, we would have a window. And we'd go do like 3 different shows: Afterburn, Experience, Canadian Slam Jams, all these things that they would chop up and send internationally. And I would work with a different producer on each show. Some of them would have scripts, some of them would have bullet points, and it was wonderful. So definitely pushed to go on the road. I'm glad I got to go on the road. I got an education, but the road and the studio, two completely different animals.
Now, we're in the world of digital media, like you mentioned, and WWE's got the Vault channel on YouTube now, and they're really rolling out a lot of old school footage and different territories and missing matches and dark matches. Do you think we'll ever see episodes of shows like that, like Bite This or Afterburn, or shows that, so far have not been available to the public to consume, the backlog?
That's a good question. Bite This, that was the show where people would actually call in, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that I would say would have a possibility. The things that I did, I think a producer would look at it and say that it didn't have a whole lot of value outside the show, because I would just do a recap show, right? So if the entire SmackDown 378 is available to you, you really don't need Jack to do the ins and outs. That the main reason I would do the ins and outs is because they're so smart as business people that you could chop this show down to whatever time frame India or the UK or B Sky B Sports would want, and then you could repackage it. So it was a great way for them to continue to monetize the shows in different ways. I would hope so. We did some cool stuff. Like one of the coolest things I did on WWE 24/7 is Flair came in one time, and I got to do a little segment with him, and it was I thought it was hilarious. It was cool, and stuff like that I hope would get played because that has some value for sure.
And tell us about that day. You got the robe involved. What was that like
Oh
working
man.
with the Nature Boy?
Well, I was a little more confident because I had been at WWE at that point for like 2.5 years, and WWE 24/7 was their on-demand network. Didn't have WWE Network or anything like that yet. It was just simply an on-demand network. I'm sure you remember this, Joe, where every month there would be, I don't know, 20 different shows available to you. One would be classic, one would be Legends Roundtable, and I would do the preview show for what's on WWE 24/7 this month. So we had a couple years experience doing it. Would always try to make it different. Ric Flair comes in, and I'm thinking, man, what could we do that would be funny? And we're doing a month called Forever Flair. So Jill Clark, the great makeup artist there, who had a great run there, great lady, she was also a seamstress. She had a Ric Flair robe that she made from like a Dollar Tree robe and some sequins. All right. And a wig. And I thought, oh, what if I dressed up like Flair? Now, what I know now is what are we hearing about some of Flair's robes? Like he takes great pride in them. Some of these things worth six figures,
Yeah.
right? So he walks in, he's not in a good mood because he just got off an early flight. I remember great hygiene. He brushed his teeth right away. It was one thing I learned too. When you travel that much, it's good to keep a toothbrush and some toothpaste with you, which I do because of Ric Flair. So he brushed his teeth. He came in, we were kind of talking and chatting. And I said, sir, I'm a big fan. Here's what I'd like to do. And he was kind of down with it. And then he saw the robe and the wig. And I think he thought we were going to make fun of him or just was turned off by the wig. And I'll never forget, he looked at me and he said, do it one time. I'm like, oh God. Yeah. At that point, I'm like, and I'm thinking in my head, just please make sure this comes off flattering to him. He doesn't know me. I don't know if he thinks I'm going to make fun of him, what I'm going to do. But, anyways, I get up there and I go, woo, I'm the Nature Boy. It's Forever Flair. And then he walks in and interrupts it. And he goes, whoa, 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 you're not the man. To be the man, you got to beat the man. And then he cuts the most beautiful promo, talks about his matches with Steamboat. And I thought it was great. And afterwards, just like me and Gene, all of a sudden I got invited to go out to drink. You
Uh,
want to go out with the Nature Boy tonight? So that was like the best reinforcement that this went well for him. That he's inviting me out to Stamford, Connecticut on a Tuesday night. So that was one of the coolest things I got to do. It was fun.
it's awesome. That ended up being a great experience for you. Top three matches of all time, if you could pick them, any era,
Whoa.
your personal favorites.
I'm gonna have to think about this. This is you are hitting me with some. You are hitting me with Mm, it's so hard. Top three. Okay, I got one and two. I guess to go first, so that I'm gonna go through the eras. So these are all based on individual significance, right? Like we could break down a lot of different factors. I'll just say individual significance for me.
Yep.
Number three, because I was there, because it was the only WrestleMania I ever attended, Triple H versus The Undertaker, WrestleMania 27. I thought they tore the house down. I thought it was they probably I know that they always say the title match should be the last match, but it was really hard for the title match to follow that. It was hard for at that point anybody to follow anything the Undertaker had done, but Triple H did it, man. They had a great match. They had the whole Georgia Dome on the edge of their seats. I thought it was amazing, and I was right up in the skybox watching that one. Loved it. Got the call. We stayed on the road too. That was the only WrestleMania that I was at. And then we just during WrestleMania season, you just keep rolling. You go to the next one. I wasn't even involved in Raw, but I think it was like a travel day. So then I showed up at SmackDown 2 days later, and which is filmed on a Tuesday. And I remember saying on commentary that was one of the greatest matches I've ever seen. Number You know what? Number two, because I could watch it over and over and over again. Hogan Rock WrestleMania 18. I mean, how that's
Yeah.
to me that embodies what sports entertainment, pro wrestling is all about. When you can't shove anything down the fans' throats.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The fans are part of the show, and they're a big part of the storyline. And I heard a lot. I'm sure you've watched a lot of different interviews and heard a lot of different stories about what they wanted to do that night, and how Vince was maybe going to save the red and yellow and the Hogan comeback, or how some believed that even though Hogan was getting the cheers, that The Rock was still going to be more over than Hogan. And that Sky Dome crowd said, no way. Just like me. They're like me. They're the ones that I'm sure were crying the big tears in July because Hogan was their guy. As much as we all love Dwayne The Rock Johnson,
Yeah.
you remember the punches when yay, boo, yay, boo. And then for number one, as I mentioned before, because it was the one that got me into pro wrestling, Hogan Savage, WrestleMania 5. I go back and I look at it and I'm just thinking these guys were so far ahead of their time with storytelling. It was, how could you not be captivated by it? Two great athletes, two guys in shape, beautiful woman, great storytelling, two guys that could talk, emotionally charged. It was a wonderful time. So I could probably name about 100 more, but I'll give you those as my top three.
I appreciate that. And you mentioned WrestleMania 5 being that you're number one. So WrestleMania 4 and 5, both Trump Plaza, Atlantic City, New Jersey. Rare for a WrestleMania to be in the same location twice in a row. But it had such an iconic feel as a fan growing up, for me anyway, an iconic look. I remember renting those VHS tapes and, just kind of the visuals of those two WrestleManias. It just felt special, and still to this day, you go back, you watch it, and you're like, man, this has got a cool feel to it. What are your thoughts on those two WrestleManias overall, just as, its appearance?
I'm with you 100%. I thought it was a cool venue. I really loved how long the entrance way was. That was kind of a precursor to what we have now, how long it took the superstars to go back and forth with those steps. And who would have thought in 88 or 89, the host of that great facility would go on to be our two-term president of the United States. So, and if you watch a lot of the interviews too, some say that President Trump may have learned a thing or two about public speaking from his time at WWE. So I agree. Overall, I thought the venue was great. I thought it looked great. I thought if you look at how far WWE had come in production value from the first few years, and especially WrestleMania 3, that was the big attendance blockbuster event. But I think shooting video in the Sky Dome versus the smaller, intimate Trump Plaza, which just had perfect lighting, you could tell they really absolutely upped their game, and it was awesome, man. It again, no matter who I encounter in the TV biz that doesn't like wrestling, or it might not be for them, they all respect the production value, and reasons like that are why that you're talking 88, 89. Vince was way ahead of his game. Look at boxing from 88 and 89 in Trump Plaza. It doesn't look nearly as good
Right.
as the way they had that show shot, lit, and I think that's what separated Vince McMahon is he really knew how to polish his product.
Yeah. You mentioned the Sky Dome, Toronto, Canada. Of course, WrestleMania 6 in 1990, back in 2002 for WrestleMania 18. This not this coming year, but the following year, they announced that they're going to be going to Saudi Arabia, the first time we get an international WrestleMania since 2002. What are your thoughts on WrestleMania going all the way out there, and how does that going to impact your everyday fan who normally would travel from all over the U.S. and nearby countries? Now it might be quite difficult to make the trek.
Well, when you talk about those people, Joe, the people that attend a lot of live events, yeah, that's going to make it a little bit more difficult. But what we know is those people are only a small percentage of
Yeah.
the people that watch. So let's say for the average viewer, not much is going to change. It for the product, it's just going to make it grow and get bigger. We see the NFL doing it. I watched, my Steelers play the Vikings in England a couple weeks ago. I'm sorry, Ireland a couple weeks ago. And we're seeing a lot of overseas games. Why is that? Because the NFL is trying to grow their footprint, grow their fan base. WWE is doing the same thing. So um, it's I'm sure it'll be the top notch production value that everybody's used to. So I think sitting at home in your living room, you're not going to see any difference at all. But I think it is going to keep this thing growing. That's for sure. And I will say this too. I can't speak to how it is now, but I just remember from the few international trips that I went on with WWE back then, they have it dialed in terms of making it as easy and as safe for the superstars and the staff as they possibly can. I did a trip to Mexico City, and the whole hotel was surrounded by security, and they had given us a speech about you guys are to stay in the hotel and all the different things that could go wrong internationally. And we were treated, we were treated great. Even me, I'm just a jabroni announcer. I was treated great. So I think that they'll have that pretty dialed in.
And your catchphrase, Jack's got your back. How did that come about?
Stole it from ACDC.
There we go. All right.
In the WWE gym, when ACDC came out with that latest album, was it called Black Ice? Was that their revamp? That I
Yep.
know Howard loved it. Oh man, Howard would
Oh,
crank it.
yeah.
We loved it because here's an aside for you. When I would go in the gym, Vince McMahon loved to work out the ACDC, and who doesn't love ACDC? But I
Sure.
mean, after like 3 years of that, we were begging for some new ACDC. So when they came out with that Black Ice album, that had Rock and Roll Train, and I can't remember some of them. One of the songs was called Big Jack, and I remember playing it, and the lyrics go, Big Jack, he's always got your back. And a little light bulb went off my head. I said, that's cool. Well, I got your back.
Nice. That's great. I always wondered how that started. So very cool. What have your interactions been like with Vince McMahon over the years?
Mine have been very positive because of I had the luxury of going to the company gym. That was something that Vince would encourage. He wanted all of his employees. He's a big fitness advocate, as you know, so he wanted employees to go. A lot of employees did not because they were, I don't know, maybe they just wanted to go home, or they didn't like working out, or they wanted to go to their own private gym, or the awkwardness of somebody, with that is so respected
Yeah.
and revered as Vince McMahon. You're thinking, oh my God, if I make a mistake, I'm going to get fired. For me, I'm a big fitness fan and I'm a big Vince fan, so I wanted to go every single day possible. For me, it was the other way, that like, hey, tone this down. Don't
Yeah.
don't be annoying to this guy. And there were lots of days where he goes in, he's in his zone with his trainer, and just give him one of these. Hello, sir. Give him maybe even to John Cena. But then there were days where he was in a really good mood. Things were going his way, and he's in the gym, and it's his leisure time. So he would come up and give you tips, have conversations. It was great. Now on the road, totally different deal. It's like, really don't speak unless spoken to. That's a different environment. That's a man that's just so far up the food chain. I did have the luxury of having a few interactions on the road, which I'd always value. But the gym, that was like playtime. ACDC blasting. A couple times I was even asked to just help backup spot. Not that I'm any. I mean, he would work out with Mr. Olympias. I'm just a little small punk. But when you're box squatting 700 pounds, it's good to have another guy around just in
Sure.
case something goes wrong. So I remember one time, it was like when I first got there, I was really friendly with a couple of his trainers. I was actually his trainer and his trainer's brother, great guys. And they said, "Come on over here." And I think Vince might have even been like, "No, we don't need him." And then they were like, it was cool to watch them veto Vince. Like, no, you know what? We need, just in case something happens, let's have everybody we can over here. So that was a thrill for me. I had to limit the fanboy enthusiasm, but it was pretty cool to be in there.
And walk us through a day in your shoes, in your position within the World Wrestling Entertainment. You get there, how early did you have to be there? How often did you have to film? How many, days a week? And what did a full day look like for you? How many hours were you there? And how many different types of projects did you have at once?
There would be an ebb and a flow, and my schedule was pretty flexible. I gotta say thank you to, I had a supervisor who was pretty much like, you know, always watch the product, which is not hard, but you're talking, back then, 12 hours a week of watching the product. And then on the days that you were shooting, you'd come in there, prepare for your show. Sometimes you're writing the script, sometimes they are, sometimes you're going through the shows, reviewing the shows. But if it wasn't a day that we were shooting, it was pretty light at that point. Now I got to the point where I was shooting 3 days. So we got, I'd say at my peak, I was shooting Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we were banging out a lot of content. So those days were super labor intensive. And as far as hours go, you stay till the show's done. That's how TV works. That's the now when it's light and you get your breaks, and this is why I value WWE. It's like, yeah, go take your break. Go take your. We don't have anything going on a Monday, and you only watch Raw tonight. You're good. Tuesday, you might be working 12, 13, 14 hours to get the show done because you can't leave till it's done. That's the way it goes in all forms of TV, and that's
Sure.
why if you look at news stations, people will be working on Christmas Eve and Christmas. That the show must go on.
And what have you some of your favorite venues been? Whether you've been there personally or even just kind of viewing from afar on television, just some venues that stood out either as a fan or while you were in the business.
Let me think about that. Let me get a swig here real quick, if you don't mind,
Yeah,
Mr. Joe. Sorry, I need to.
absolutely.
My best venues. Well, I would say. Excuse me one second, Joe.
Sure.
Voice is slowly coming back from Daytona. It was pretty much
Oh
gone on
man.
Sunday. Um, the iconic venues are special, like Madison Square Garden. How could you beat that, right? I
Yeah.
really enjoy a place where I met the great Joseph Bruen, Mohegan Sun. I really like that vibe because it was almost like a home game for WWE. It was a really close arena, a lot easier in and out than Madison Square Garden, and it's an awesome casino. And you asked me about restaurants earlier on. There was a place I did every time we would go to Mohegan Sun. I would have to go to Michael Jordan's Steakhouse.
Oh yeah.
I think he's only got two of them. One's in Chicago, one's in Mohegan Sun. I don't know how that happened. I know Michael likes to play a little blackjack and play a few hands.
Yep.
Apparently, he fell in love with that place like I did. But I thought Mohegan Sun was a very underrated casino. It made me feel like I was in Vegas when I was in Connecticut,
Yeah.
and they had a lot of great concerts there and shows. So that one was always a lot of fun. I remember the Honda Center in Anaheim back in the day. I don't know if it's still Honda Center anymore, but that was another one where you're just like, man, I'm calling a match where the Mighty Ducks are playing. Um, I would say those ones were the best. A lot of cool small arenas too along the lines, but I think if you made me pick my all time favorite, I'd say Mohegan Sun.
Yeah. Beautiful facility, without a doubt. When it comes to casinos, lucky to have that right here in the New England area for sure.
And where else, Joe, after a show, could you see superstars sitting down at the tables? I mean, that would happen all the time, right? That
Right.
especially they would wait. You'd get that big rush of fans that would leave, but then maybe at like midnight, there's John Morrison and The Miz playing blackjack and having fun with fans. So I
Exactly.
always heard those stories that was something you're never going to get at a. No one was hanging around in Detroit at the arena till
Right.
12:30 or hanging around in Dayton, Ohio till 12:30 at the arena. But you go to a place like Mohegan Sun where the casino's attached, and it certainly was.
Yeah, I remember Vicky Guerrero. She was there with CM Punk and MVP and Hornswoggle. I think Kofi Kingston, a few others, and they were hitting the tables, and it was early in the morning. And my wife and I were staying at the hotel there. We went down just to kind of get out. Couldn't really sleep. You're in Mohegan Sun. You don't want to just go up to your room and go to bed. So we're like, all right, let's go walk around, and we caught some of the superstars doing their thing. So it was cool to see. And like you said, they kind of they sneak out. They're like, all right, that big group of fans they have now dissipated, so it's time to have some fun.
Yeah, I could say most superstars like the interacting with fans. They just when you get that big mass of fans,
Yeah.
it's tough for anybody. And like I said, I am a F level YouTube creator, but even at Daytona, I could feel that sometimes you're trying to get stuff done. Let's say there's a group of like 30 people that recognize you. It's always
Yeah.
cool when you get three or four and you can spend time with some people, but when you get 30, man, it gets tough. And I'm like, this is the life they live all the time. You get these guys can't walk down the street.
Let's talk a little bit about the pay structure for somebody in your position there. Were you paid per gig or per taping? Were you just paid? Were you on salary? How did that work? And if you were required to travel or you had an extra long day, did the company cover your hotel? Did they take care of your flight or rental car?
I was blessed, Joe, because I think when I came in 2006, as I told you, the company was doing very, very well, and kind of a new position was created. That's they would sit down with managers. That's one of the reasons why it took so long too, that they might have a posting up there, but they're not exactly sure where they need help. And then, maybe this guy that was there 6 months ago decides to move on or makes a mistake and he's no longer with the company. So I've heard a lot about announcers being on the wrestler scale as contractors. I was an employee, same as Howard Finkel. So I had health benefits. I had I was able to fill out an expense report. If I went on the road, they put me in a TV hotel that'd be paid for. They bought all the airline tickets. We could expense our meals, and I was on salary. So it was beautiful for me. It was just total blessing. Now I know guys. I've heard guys announcers doing well either way. You can get paid per show and do really really well. But for me, being that young, it was being on salary was great stability. Having medical benefits was great stability as well. I know that that's a talking point with a lot of the wrestlers and not having. I had a 401k, company match, company stock plan. Oh, good Lord, Joe, if we could all go back,
I know,
that
right?
talking buying stock at $8 back then. What's it
Oh
at now?
man,
$178
somewhere
TKO.
around there.
So
Yeah,
luckily, I still got a little. I still got a little. I kept some, but yeah, they had a great company stock plan at the time. They had something that was so cool. Where if you love stocks, you will be totally into this. I did it almost every paycheck. You could have a certain amount of your paycheck go towards the company stock, and they would collect all that money. And then at the end of 6 months, you would get it for 15% less of what it was on day one or what it was at the 6 month mark, whichever one was more in your favor. So imagine this, Joe. There were times where, let's say January 1st, that stock's at $10. Okay. It runs up to 20. Well, now 6 months later, you are getting the stock for $8.50, which is now worth $20 a share. That was
wow.
rare, but that could happen. So I was doing the maximum amount you could do, which was not a ton of money, but I'm like, yeah, let me do this. And I know people that were there that were shrewd with money. Like one guy was saving for his wedding. So he was like, absolutely, if this is a couple more grand a year, I'm doing it. And we would all do it. And I ended up holding a lot of that stock until I was no longer with the company. That's when I thought what I thought at the time, and okay, Jim Cramer, all these other guys get diversified. I guess I was right, but I was a little nervous holding my entire retirement in WWE stock. But looking back, I don't, I'm lucky. I've traded some different companies. I jumped in on Meta, and I love them. I love Apple, and I recommend that to everybody out there. Get some stock, get a good company, buy at a good price if you can. But my goodness, I don't know where I'd be if we just would have loaded up the truck at $8 WWE stock and rode it up to 200. That's uh
Wow, my goodness.
that's
Yeah.
a heck of a run, man. Heck of a run that stock went on.
Yeah. How about catering? When it comes to catering, they had a great catering inside of the Titan Towers. I'm not familiar with the TV studio, so kind of tell us if there was anything there. And then when you were on the road at the arenas, what was the catering like as well?
Fantastic. You could tell Vince McMahon. I mean, sure, it starts at the top. Vince McMahon likes to eat, likes good food. Everything they ever served was out of this world. Catering on the road, always fantastic. Multiple different options. Big buffet. I had to get out of there, gain weight. I used to like give myself a half an hour window and then just walk away, or else I'd just sit there and nibble all day. Um, at the TV studio, two different buildings. I worked at the TV studio, which was hidden. I told you that story at Fan Fest. That yeah, the tower, which was very visible, TV studio was a mile and a half or so down the road. Very hidden, incognito building. They didn't have any food there. At the tower, I would go there for lunch, and it was a great deal. It was like $8 or something, subsidized, and guys would cook you up fresh food. I used to get all these hard boiled eggs and grilled chicken and wraps, and man, it was
Hmm.
just amazing. I would go over there, work out, go get a meal. I was loving it. I was taking advantage of every company benefit that I possibly could. Where I totally get it that a lot of people imagine this too. Let's say you're not a huge fan, right? And then you got a great high paying job in marketing, accounting, something like that. And
Yeah.
you're older and you've been there, done that. Your philosophy, because I've encountered these people in the workforce, is I don't want to mingle with any coworkers or any company activity other than what I have to, just because I respect my job. I don't want any problems. A lot of people felt that way. That's why they didn't want to be in the gym. They didn't want to be in the cafeteria. But some people, I was probably waving the pom poms harder than anybody because I loved working there. I was at everything. I'd go to chat with the chairmans. We used to have those every once in a while, which were cool. And I'd be there.
Got to take advantage of the perks sometimes, you know?
I'm glad I did, man, because that ride didn't last forever, did it?
No, you had a great run there, and you know pushed out a lot of great quality content. And for me personally, you mentioned it earlier that maybe it wasn't, in your opinion, as meaningful to kind of tape the ins and outs of a regular SmackDown or whatever it is. But I've always been on the other side of that. I've always been into the countdown shows and the hosts hosting the event. If WrestleMania is on for 2 days, there's usually a 3 or 4 hour countdown show each day. And a lot of people, maybe that's not their cup of tea, but I've always been in to that side of things and seeing the analysts break it down and seeing the video packages. And, I think you got to have a little bit of both for sure.
Sure. No, I agree. I agree 100%. And that's why I think they're the masters of it. I learned so much there. It was like the greatest graduate degree you could ever get in this world. It really helped me come into my own as an on air talent that I look at delivery and on-air performance as a work in progress. I'm still learning. I'm learning to this very day. But working at WWE gave me the ability to get such a head start that I would do an on-cam and then I would just watch it and critique it and have other people critique it. What can I do better here? How can I put this in my own words? Was I too over the top here? How was my energy here? Can I deliver this better? So all of those things just gave me such an unbelievable opportunity.
Now, fans, let's talk about fans briefly. Is there a fan interaction that stands out? You've done a couple fan fests over the years now, of course, traveling to different shows with WWE. Anything stand out? Particular interaction?
Your show, man. It was awesome. Absolutely. As I said, as I was telling you, I know, and WWE taught us this, which was great. Announcers don't sell tickets. We're not draws. I was lucky enough to be part of the show, so some people do know me. I have a Tops card of me. I don't deserve that. I love Tops. I love baseball cards. There should never be a Tops card of me, but you can look for it out there. It does exist. I remember a couple times on the road fans lining up for autographs, and a few of them asked for mine, and I had to be. That's a touchy situation because I'll tell you why, Joe. Here's what happens. I'll go. Anybody asks for my autograph, I'm so humbled. I'll go do it because I was that guy. But then you got to watch. Like it could be perceived if one of the boys sees it or one of the workers. Boy, that Jack thinks he's big shot signing autographs out there. Like, so you worry about that, right? So a few times there wasn't anybody around, and I'm like, I'm gonna go hang out with these fans because this was me. That my dad, we used to go to baseball games, and we would wait at Three River Stadium for the players to come out. And even if it was, the ball boy or anybody, third base coach coming out, it was cool. So
Yeah.
I tried to do that anytime I could. And then the fans at your show were just amazing. Your show was, man, yeah, I got an education off of yours. I mean, the amount of people you packed in a hotel on a summer, what was it, a summer Saturday? That was just fantastic, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And there's a deep history in the New England area for sure. So you get the old school fans, you get newer fans. It's a good mix and always great. So as we wind down here, memories working with the camera crew, whether it be at the big venues or even, with the production crew. What was that like? Did you become friends with any of the guys? Were they easy to work with?
The people in the studio were like family because you would see him so often. We had a guy named John McCall who operated the camera, great guy. Jill, who did my makeup, like I said. John would have an assistant from time to time. We'd have an audio guy normally, and it was just small and intimate. So I remember there were years where we started like, once a week, somebody would bring lunch, and we would just shit, oh my gosh, it's your day. What are you going to bring? So it was a lot of fun, a lot of great camaraderie. We spent a lot of time together, a lot of hours together doing different shows, a lot of holidays together. So it was really, really cool to get close with the people in the studio.
So as 2025 comes to a close, John Cena hanging it up as far as his in-ring competition goes. So with John Cena sailing off into the sunset, will we see another John Cena in your opinion? And if we do, Is there anybody there now that you think maybe will be that next
Hmm.
big push or that next big guy?
I think there's
Mark
always
Henry.
going to be that next big guy, and there's probably somebody right now we're not expecting. There is, you look at Roman Reigns, and I think that as time goes on, we're going to appreciate how much greater these individuals are. Because I remember how many years did we talk about how John Cena couldn't fill the shoes of Stone Cold, The Rock, Hulk Hogan, and then as time goes on, you realize he's right there in that category. So you look at the people that are running hard today, and I think there's probably somebody who we're not even aware of right now that's going to step up. The scary thing for me, Joe, is like even when you were rattling off that stat, it still bends my mind. I guess it's part of getting older or hitting this age. I'm 43 right now. So when you said WrestleMania at what six was 1990, and then
Yep.
18 2002, right? So that's
Right.
that's 12 years. That's not that long. When I was a kid, it felt like 1990 was ancient history and Hulk's coming back. What I feel like now, I feel like John Cena just started. I look at him winding down and I'm like, I still see the Dr. Thugonomics. I'm like, oh my
Right.
God, time is so relative. But then you start doing the math and you're like, oh, okay, this is 2025. Gosh, John Cena talking was going strong 20 years ago. I
Yeah.
mean, why it's just mind-boggling to me. And then also getting older, I don't know if you've ran into some aches and pains. We're not taking bumps. Gosh, the appreciation. I remember being like 25, being like, why is the Undertaker thinking about retiring? Why would anyone ever retire? He could keep doing WrestleMania forever. And then you get a little older and you're like, oh man, my shoulder. And then you're like, oh, these guys have had 45 surgeries and have oh, I can see why they can't be in the ring anymore at that age. So
Exactly.
it's pretty amazing that I know Hogan always said in interviews he thought he wrestled 10 years too long. And I can totally see and appreciate it that a guy that big, how much pain that he must have dealt with and injuries he had to deal with and total shame,
Like you
man.
said, we take it for granted, and somebody like Hulk Hogan, who is his finisher is the leg drop, so he's landing in that position every single night, and to do that for 30 years or whatever, is got to be unbelievable. And Undertaker, almost 7 feet tall, sometimes he's diving over the top rope to the outside. I mean, what other 7 footers do you see doing that? It's just
Exactly.
guys like that. They are just amazing, and you got to cherish those athletes for sure.
Amen. Amen, man. They gave us some great memories, that's for sure.
How can fans follow you? Social media?
Thank you very much. Well, yeah, personally, I don't really have any good social media to follow, but of course I do. So, Cycle Drag on Facebook, that's my strongest outlet. I'm really proud of it. It has been turbocharged all of a sudden. It, 3 years ago, it hit a million followers. Now it's at like 1.8. So, coming up
Oh,
on
that's awesome.
2 million. I have Cycle Drag YouTube where I'm trying hard to get that gold plaque, but it's gonna damn kill me, man. I'm, coming up on 700,000 subscribers. So digging away there. Got a new channel too called Racing Jack YouTube, which I do a lot of interviews with racing legends, and I'm pushing that one as well. So those are my three big outlets that you can follow me on, and everybody's welcome. If I ever see a superstar, we'll get them. That's why when I saw Stone Cold at the Best in the Desert race racing the UTV, I said, 100%, we got to get them.
Now, did you ever get a chance to meet with any of the racers for the WWF cars, the Stone Cold or the Kane car or anything like
I
that?
wish I would have. It was a little before my time. That I do remember when NHRA ran the WWE Dragster for a while. That's when WWE was really spending a lot of money on advertising, and I wish I would have been covering racing during that era, but I wasn't.
And in closing, what do you want your how do you want to be remembered? What do you want your legacy to be?
Ooh, in the wrestling world or in general?
I guess in general, let's
Okay, good, because
generalize
I
it.
don't think if you remember me in the wrestling world, well, then that means you're a super fan, and I'm totally humbled by that. In general, that is a really, really deep question because that is what I like to ask a lot of the legends when I get done interviewing with them. I would say a man who tried to make a difference, who tried to show appreciation, who tried to show love, because I do believe when you boil this all down, it's all about love, whether it's your faith, whether it's your religion, whether it's the relationships you have with your family. I know that George W. Bush gave such a beautiful eulogy on his father, and I thought that he nailed it, where he said, no, nobody's going to remember how much money you had, how much success you had in a certain sector, but they're always going to remember what type of friend you were, what type of person you were, what type of warm smile you greeted with them with, or how you helped them in need. And hopefully, that's how I would like to be remembered, as somebody willing to help, somebody willing to. Certainly not a perfect human being, certainly a flawed human being that's made a whole lot of mistakes, but somebody who appreciated life and valued love. That's what it's all about.
Well, Jack, it's been a pleasure to have you here for the All Access Entertainment
Thank you,
podcast.
Joe.
Stick around for the quick bonus segment. And thanks so much for taking the time today.
Thank you so much, man. Our goal is we can get. I know I'm not the biggest F lister in the world, but if you can break 6 views on this video, I'm gonna owe you a cheeseburger.
All right, let's get it done. For Jack Korpela, I'm Joseph Bruen. This has been the All Access Entertainment Podcast. Give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and get the notifications for the upcoming videos. We will see you in overtime.